Good morning, everyone. Good evening for those down under. So we've got a new interview with Seth and TikTok Tony on YouTube. So I want to talk about that. The channel is Bullhorn Betty, and I know that a lot of people have issues with Betty, but that's not why we're here. So I'm going to say up front within the first minute of this live stream, what I don't want to see is negative comments about creators. This is not what this is. This is not what I do on my channel. I don't care whose channel the information's on. If the information is interesting and worthy of discussion, then that's good enough for me. All right. So I don't want any negativity towards Betty or any other creator in the chat. What we're here to do is discuss, critique, whatever, the information. All right, so I hope that's clear to everybody. You're very welcome to have a different opinion than me, as long as you're respectful. That's absolutely fine. But just no negativity towards creators. That's not what my channel's about. And there's plenty of that. There's plenty of that elsewhere in this case on a bunch of other channels. So if you want to listen to, creator on creator BS, anyhow, that's what we're doing here today. So this was overnight my time. I watched it this morning. Let me just get it up here, and then I'll say a few hellos. Hold on, here we go. All right, there we go. All right, so we can keep Sebastian's face and his basic details there from the Amber Alert as we go through this. One thing about having paid for StreamYard for a month on this channel, I'm able to do custom backgrounds, so I can keep Sebastian's details there for the whole live stream. Let's say a few hellos first, give people a chance to come in. I'm guessing that there's a lot of people who will have seen this already. However, I'm not going to go through the whole interview because it was over 2 hours long. So if I tried to comment on every single point that I thought was interesting, then we'd be here for about maybe 6 or 7 hours. And no, no, I don't want to do it. So I've got some selected timestamps. Now, it doesn't mean to say that these are the only interesting things. They're just things that I've picked out. And maybe in the days to come, I'll discuss more. But depends what else goes on. Let's say a few hellos before we start. So we've got Jewel, down under with love, being the sifter of information. Yeah, it feels like that, doesn't it? Hi, Holly. Flicking bollocks for the early birds. Love me like music. Good morning from Eastern North Carolina. Hello, Viv. So was more hate on the Proudfoots and me. I don't disagree with you. I think there was some interesting stuff there about Sebastian, but a lot of it was just negative, very negative. And in my opinion, I don't think Seth ever got over Katie. I think that's where his hatred comes from. I don't think it's from Sebastian going missing. I think that hatred, or love turned to hatred, so which is the worst kind of hate, I think that was there all along. I really do. I don't think what Seth is saying now is to do with Sebastian. I think he's hearing things on the internet and he's using those to blame Katie. But if ever there was any information that came out that, genuine, factual information that came out that implicated Katie, I wouldn't defend her. People think that I'm here to defend the Profuts. I'm not. I'm here to discuss information. And if there's any information that comes out in the future from law enforcement, or maybe from, somebody doing their own investigation that genuinely implicated Katie, then I would say so. Just at this moment in time, I don't see it. I don't see anything from any of the parents. I don't. I really don't. But it doesn't help us locate Sebastian, does it? Hello, Debbie, Dulce. Kelly, Mel, 2:35 a.m. Oh, dear. Yeah, there's people up right in the middle of the night. It's the time I get up. They are. The very early risers are very late to bed. I don't know which it is. Hello, Vala. And we've got CW. Hello, hello, hello. Got an appointment at 10:50. Be out for 11. Well, hopefully you're out. If you're not, just rewind. Just rewind. Little Skulls Tattoos. Gig Girl. Thanks for cheering us. Why I didn't have to. No, it really was interesting. It's worth a listen. It really is. It was interesting. If you can put up with the negativity. Pincho, the case gets weirder. The gun saga. I'm not discussing that. The gun saga. I'm not discussing that. There's no evidence that Seth actually said that he wanted somebody to buy him a gun. Unless that person can provide receipts, then I'm just ignoring it. Holly, hello. Always me, 1969. Hello, hello. Hello, Mike. Still thinking Sebastian's very close and overlooked. Me too. That's where I'm at. Hello, Devil Doll. Hello, hello. Oh, the dentist's already late. No way. Two Arctic Wolves. Hello, Blue Willow. Chemistry Queen. Amelia. And we've got Lisa. And we've got, who else? We've got Kayla. Hippie. I'm not going to try with that one. I'm not going to try. Anyway, hello, everybody. Puppy Brigade, yeah. All right, let's get going. Because even though I said I'm not going to go through the whole interview, I do have quite a few timestamps. Hey, thank you so much, Nanny of 10, for the 20 Australian dollars. Been with you since day one, Summer Wells. Yeah, 3 years for Summer coming up. But thank you so much for the donation. Very generous. Right, so without further ado, we're going to start at about 37 minutes in. So again, we're just doing selected time points here. There may be times when I go back to this in the days to come. This is where we're going to start. So around the 37-minute mark. I know, 3 years for Summer. In 2 weeks, 2 weeks' time, it's going to be 3 years. Crazy. Crazy, crazy. The TBI media person, Leslie Earhart, wasn't wrong when she said, a few days into Summer's case, she said this case is outside of the norm. And yeah, how right she was. Okay, let's start. Let me know that you can hear this okay. As long as StreamYard isn't playing up with its audio glitches. I have noticed other creators having the same problem with StreamYard. So it's not just me. Just sometimes it loses the audio and you have to basically go out and come back in and then it's fine. It's weird. June 15th. Yes, Mel. June 15th. Okay. Let's go.
You asked for basically a proof of life video from law enforcement because you had not spoken to your son since the Thursday before he went missing. So you didn't speak to him Friday. He was out Saturday with his mom, Sunday, and then Monday he wasn't there. And so law enforcement did bring you, brought you in and talked to you about the Roadhouse video. And you.
Okay, so can everyone hear that all right? What about the speed? I've got it on 1.25. I think that's acceptable for everybody. Just speeds it up a little bit. All right, cool. So the proof of life video. So it wasn't, as far as we understand it from law enforcement, because they did mention this at a press conference, it was law enforcement that requested that Seth and Katie go and see them. So whilst they were there, Seth asked to see the proof of life video, which is the Texas Roadhouse. So they showed him that, and that proved that Sebastian was alive and well on the Sunday evening as they left Texas Roadhouse. Now, there is another video that Seth has mentioned, and that was a video of Sebastian taking out the trash. So after he got home, we don't know exactly what time they got home. I think law enforcement will have a very good idea of when they got home, but we don't know what time they got home. And then at some point between them getting home and Sebastian going to bed, which Katie said was about 9 p.m, although she did hear him at 10, but he went to bed at about 9 p.m, and it was some time that Sebastian took out the trash. We discussed it at some length yesterday, which camera it might have been, which house it might have been. It's one of the houses across that actually caught Sebastian on camera. However, Seth has said, he doesn't mention it in this interview, but in previous interviews he has said that although he saw that video, it wasn't clear because it was, it was dark, it was grainy, it's 100 feet away. So I think Seth is using the Texas Roadhouse video as the definite proof of life that he has. I firmly believe Sebastian made it home. I firmly believe it was Sebastian that took out the trash. I firmly believe Katie's story from, that portion of the story. So law enforcement haven't told us any different. Does Seth say he's not 100% on the trash video? He says it wasn't clear. I don't know the exact words he used, but he did say it wasn't clear. It wasn't, a really clear. It was just a person. But I would imagine that if it was Katie, he'd be able to tell the difference between Katie and Sebastian. Although Northport Police, if everybody remembers the Brian Laundrie situation, Northport Police couldn't appear to differentiate Brian Laundrie from his mother. So I don't know. But anyway, this particular topic here is about the Texas Roadhouse video.
You got an opportunity to see your son walk out of the restaurant. Can you tell me what was the first thing that you noticed when you saw that video?
He's alive. It was literally just a proof of life video.
What was his demeanor like?
There wasn't enough for me to tell.
How about the clothes that he was wearing? Were those, I think you've already answered this, but just for my clarification.
Chris answered that question.
Huh?
Chris answered that question.
What did Chris say?
Chris said that they used his clothes from the night before for the scent dogs.
Okay, gotcha. Did anything appear?
All right, so we did have Chris saying that they used Sebastian's clothes for the scent dogs. So now Seth appears to confirm that the clothes that Sebastian was wearing the night before were used for the scent dogs. I don't think that's a brilliant use of a scent article. I mean, I don't know. I would have preferred shoes. Maybe they did use the shoes he was wearing. But anyhow.
Odd or out of place when you were looking at that video?
didn't pay that much attention. I was just happy to see that.
Gotcha.
Do I wish I had? Yes. Do I wish I had that video so I could sit there and just look at it? Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
But I'm not law enforcement in this case. I'm a suspect.
And you have not been cleared?
No, nobody has.
Nobody's been cleared. So Seth is naming himself a suspect. I don't believe he's a suspect, but if that's how Seth feels, maybe he's concerned that he's not been cleared. But it's a law enforcement thing. When there's a missing child case, they don't clear people. They don't. It's not unusual that they would, even if they know 100% that the parent has an alibi, and Seth clearly does have an alibi, they still don't clear you. It's weird. It's weird.
If you had a list,
I think it's kind of hilarious, but you know.
And actually, I'm going to kind of go on a little tangent here, but just to clarify, where do you work?
I work for Davidson County Sheriff's Office.
And what is your job or your job title?
Deputy Sheriff, and I work in the Corrections Department.
And where were you the night that Sebastian disappeared?
At work.
And you said you were at a
correction center.
And so you were at a jail.
I was in jail.
so you were in jail, and I'm sure there's probably, with it being a jail, it's a very secured area.
Oh yes, I am on camera arriving at 6 p.m. into the garage, which is a secure garage. You have to have badge access to get in or out. Mm-hmm. And then I'm leaving at like 7:30 the next morning, exiting out of the garage.
If you had to list Sebastian's favorite
right, that is good enough for me. Craft logs, the alibi is not tight. Do you think? I think that's one of the best alibis you could have if you're in jail all night. The garage is not in the jail. Yeah, but he was in the jail, so you need the badge access to get in the garage, and then you go into the jail. So there's cameras in the jail. It wouldn't have been difficult for law enforcement to be able to confirm that Seth was in that jail all night. Now, remember, Davidson County Sheriff's Office is a good 45 minutes away from Sebastian's house. So if let's imagine, right, that Seth, pulled a swift one here. Let's go through the scenario. So he parks in the garage at Davidson County Jail, about 45 minutes away, roughly, from Sebastian's house. Then he goes into the jail, then at some point manages to slip out without taking his vehicle out of the garage. And then he has another vehicle waiting. And then he drives 45 minutes, disappears Sebastian, and drives 45 minutes back. So that's a total of 90 minutes. That's an hour and a half, not including the time it would have taken him to disappear Sebastian. And then he goes back to the jail and slips in without anybody noticing. No, come on now. It's one of the best alibis you can have. I can't see a more solid alibi than that. Anyhow, moving on. So that covers Seth's alibi. So for those who say that I'm negative towards Seth, which I never have been, he said some stuff that I don't like. He said some stuff that I wish he hadn't have said, but I say exactly the same for Chris. There's plenty of stuff I wish Chris hadn't said. The two sides of the same coin. Katie has picked two men who are very similar personality-wise in many respects, not in some respects, but in many respects, they're very similar. They're both headstrong. They're both inclined to, flare up. They've got quick tempers, and that's not me slighting them, even though I wish there's things they didn't say in anger. I really do. And there's plenty in this interview that I could pull out that I wish Seth didn't say. However, that doesn't mean I believe that Seth had anything to do with Sebastian's disappearance. I genuinely think he loves Sebastian. I genuinely believe that he has absolutely no clue what happened to him. I don't like the fact he's blaming Katie. However, Seth on his own, as an individual, I do not believe he's got anything to do with Sebastian's disappearance. And I think his alibi is as solid as it can be. He never left for a lunch break. Well, it's the middle of the night, so he wouldn't have a lunch break in the middle of the night. But if he had a lunch break, he would probably have it at some point inside the jail. And if he was leaving, so if he left in the middle of the night to go and get something to eat, like, I don't know, from a takeaway place or something, he would have had to leave and then come back in using his badge. You can't just walk into a jail. There's security. So no, no. Just to draw a line under it. Admit that Seth, no, his alibi is as strong as it can be. It would have taken a minute flat for law enforcement to confirm that alibi. So, yeah, if they have a break, he's not going to have an hour and a half break, right? And that's just the travel time. So think about it. If the equivalent of a lunch break, what's that? 45 minutes, hour tops, a lunch break, a meal break. So he gets out of the jail without no one seeing him. No one sees him. He has a different vehicle lined up. So let's say 5 minutes for him to slip away, get to the vehicle that he has hidden. Then he drives to Sebastian's house, which is in the 45 minutes, an hour 50 minutes. Then he has to disappear Sebastian. So I've no idea how long that would take because I've never disappeared anyone. So let's say 10 minutes. So that's an hour. And then he has to come 45 minutes back, stash the vehicle. Then he has to get back into the jail without anyone seeing him. So let's say another 5 minutes. So you're looking on an hour and 50 minutes. And no one question. No. Come on now. All right. 45 minutes. I want to go to 45 minutes. So let's say about there. All right. Moving on.
And cheese to go ahead and make sandwiches. Pick up graham crackers, marshmallows, and chocolate. Make some s'mores is always fun.
So that's just in relation to things that Sebastian likes to do with Seth. So that's just the tail end of that combo.
This is probably going to be a little more difficult, but what has been the most difficult part of you dealing with your son's disappearance?
You hear that? TV's not on. He's not playing video games. Nobody goes in his room. His light's not on. He's not coming to ask me what I'm doing. He's not asking me to play card games. He's not here. He's just not here. I don't know where he's at.
KCG, Seth doesn't work in the same town. No, he works in Davidson County jail. Let's do the map. Let's do the map. Let's show you where it is. Right, Davidson County Jail. What town's it in? I'll just put Tennessee. Tennessee. Okay. To Stafford Court. All right, here we are. So this is Davidson County Sheriff's Office. That's what it gave me when I typed in Davidson County Jail. So it's the other side of Nashville. So 31 minutes. So it's actually a bit less than I thought. And presumably there's not going to be a great deal of traffic at that time. So it could probably do it in half an hour. All right, so we could cut like half an hour off my time. So let's say an hour and a half to get out of the jail without anyone seeing him, go to Hendersonville, to Stafford Court, disappear Sebastian, and then come back. So imagine that the journey time's longer in the day, but at night, yeah, you could probably do it in half an hour. How many miles? 26.7 miles. Depends on which route you take. Between 26, 27, 30 miles. So no. No. Look, no. Is it possible that he could have got someone else to go and disappear Sebastian? Yeah, I guess it is. However, just remember, law enforcement said in the TBI newsroom that I keep showing you again and again and again, that law enforcement have said that they've accounted for every vehicle in the area over the time span when Sebastian could possibly have gone missing. Plus, Seth has no motive. Exactly, Tommy. He's no motive because Sebastian was going to go and live with him anyway. So there's no motive for any part on anything on the part of Seth. There's no motive. Anyhow, moving on. And I genuinely believe he's desperate to find Sebastian. I don't think he's making that up. Honestly, I don't think he is.
I don't know where my son is.
It's gotta be. I can't even imagine. It's so hard for me to try, and I'm trying to stay away from the drama during this interview, but some days it's just so hard for me to understand how people could be mean to this man. I don't get it. I don't know.
Well, I think people are being overly harsh on all the parents. That said, there are some things that Seth has said that are worthy of criticism. There are things that he said in this interview as well that he should not be saying. For those reasons, I think that Seth is due some criticism. But it doesn't mean to say you've got to be able to separate out the criticism and the negativity that you have for some of the things that Seth is saying about Sebastian, about the situation. However angry he is, there's certain things he should not be saying. Absolutely not be saying. And, law enforcement stopped speaking to him because of it. But you've got to separate that from thinking that Seth is a suspect, because there's no way he could have done it, and there's no motive for him to have someone else disappear Sebastian either. Is Seth still working at that facility? Some are wondering. I don't know whether he's left his job. He's not working at the moment. I don't know whether he can go back to that job at any point that he chooses. I don't know how long his work would allow him to have time off. So the answer to that question is I don't know whether he still officially has a job or whether he's left that job. I mean, originally, I thought they'd given him like 3 months leave. That's what I heard right at the beginning of the case, but that was just something I heard. I can't confirm it. But short answer is I don't know.
If I really don't know if I will quite, ever get that. And I'm just.
Why we lose our minds once in a while.
Okay. So this is.
My house is not a home. He should be here. School's already out. He should be here enjoying summer break.
And that is truly heartbreaking. That is truly heartbreaking. If you think about it, Sebastian was due to go and live with Seth, and he would be there now. So Seth has absolutely no motive. So say what you think. Say what you think about Seth. But one thing I really don't think you can say is that he did this. I really don't. Anyway, moving on. Next timestamp. We are going to 55 minutes now. I don't like doing this. I don't like doing timestamps because it's annoying, but I'd rather just listen to the whole interview. But we genuinely be here for hours. And I am trying to keep my live streams a little bit shorter so that people can watch them on the replay. So what was it? 55. 55. Bang on. So I just take it to like a few seconds before, so you get the tail end of the previous conversation.
Right. Of his room, wherever room he happened to be in, any room, period. I'm going to go find out what that noise is, verify, see what's going on. The fact that she would say that there was that type of noise and not go check on him, to me, is not proper parenting.
Look, I've made my feelings clear about the thud. So that's the tail end of a bit of negativity towards Katie. Not really what I want to focus on. However, we're here now. But look, I've had teenagers, right? My youngest son is nearly 22. And when my kids were teenagers, if I'd heard a thud coming from their room, would I have gone in? Would I have rushed in thinking that something dire had happened? No, I absolutely wouldn't. Because generally it would be crashes and bangs. And, one time Kyle got so mad that he threw his PS4 controller and hit a TV and smashed the TV. So that's the kind of sounds that came from Kyle's room when he was like 15. And then he was gutted. I think he was like nearly crying. Maybe he was younger than 15. Maybe he was about 12. Absolutely gutted that he's broke his TV. I bought him a stress ball. Do you know those little like squeezy balls you can buy? So I said, when you're playing and you get mad, instead of throwing your controller, because he'd broken about 4 controllers at this point anyway by throwing them. I said, don't throw your controller, squeeze the stress ball. Or at least if you feel like you need to throw something, throw the stress ball. So would I have gone in every time I heard a thud from a teenager's bedroom? No. I would have expected something to have got broken, but I wouldn't have expected them to be, dying or something like that. I really wouldn't. If the thud was loud enough, I would probably have shouted through, like, behave yourself. The neighbours are going to complain again. So look, and I don't think Katie did anything wrong. I really don't think Katie did anything wrong by not rushing into Sebastian's bedroom. She spoke to him. So, you know, if you'd heard a thud and then you'd shouted through and then you'd not heard anything, maybe you would go in. Maybe you'd knock on the door and say, "Are you okay?" Maybe I would have done that. But I wouldn't have rushed in. Now, if it's a toddler, if it's a small child, then of course you would, because you just assume that they'd fallen out of bed, or you know, something potentially accidental could have happened. So I would have done for a small child if I'd heard a thud, but not a teenager. So I think Seth saying that this is not good parenting, again, I think this is just to be negative towards Katie, because he's got this love-hate thing going on with her, and he's using Sebastian's situation to throw more shade her way. And I don't think Seth is a perfect parent. I mean, Seth said in this very interview, I don't think I've got this timestamp lined up, but he said in this very interview that, you know, he can be in one room and then Sebastian's in another room playing games. Well, okay, that's fine. You know, giving a teenager the freedom to play games in their own room, that's fine. That's what teenagers do. They want to be in a room. They want to be playing the games. That's fine. So Seth, I think, really needs to take a step back and think, really, would I really have rushed in if Sebastian was in his room playing on his Switch or on his whatever, Xbox, whatever he had? Would I seriously have gone in? And I don't think he would. I don't think he would. I think he's just using that, like many people on the internet have, to throw some shade at Katie. I genuinely don't think Katie did anything wrong by shouting through and saying, you know, whatever you're doing, quit it. Did you fall out of bed? Whatever it is she said, right? I don't think the thud was anything. I think it was a teenager being a teenager. That's just my opinion. No, nobody's a perfect parent, right? I wasn't a perfect parent. No, you weren't a perfect parent. Show me a perfect parent. Show me them. I'll bring them on the channel and interview them. and I bet you any money, you know, we end up concluding that they're not a perfect parent, because we all have different attitudes. We all, you know, have our, you know, belief system on what a good parent should be. And we have many differences. There's no such thing as a perfect parent. There's many very terrible parents, you know, really, really bad parents, but the majority of us try our best. We don't do any harm, or at least much harm, but we're not perfect. There's times when you might say things that you regret to your kid. You might get mad and say something that you really regret. And what do? Well, you man up and you apologize. You teach a child that, you know, when you say something that was wrong, it's not okay just to bury it just because you're the person in authority. You teach that child that a person in authority actually can be wrong. And it's a good lesson for them for the future. That's my opinion. Anyhow.
Based on your knowledge of your son's behaviors, do you believe he would have left the house in the middle of the night?
That's a good one. I was only ever a perfect parent before I had kids. Yeah. Oh, yeah. How idealistic were you, right? If your first child, when you know that you're expecting your first child, or your partner's expecting the first, you know, you've got this child on the way. It doesn't matter whether you're the mother or the father. It doesn't matter. And you have all these idealistic beliefs of what you're going to do, who you're going to treat the child, the rules you're going to have, you know, and then the child arrives and then reality hits. And there's no way that all the things that you set out that you were going to do in an ideal world, in they go out the window? They probably go out the window within the first week. Oh dear. Dear, oh dear. It's the same with dogs, you know, you get a dog and you think, right, the dog's not going to go on the furniture, the dog's going to do this, the dog's going to do that. And actually, the dog ends up just doing what it wants. And that's fine. That's good enough for me. All right, so would Sebastian disappear in the middle of the night?
Different scenarios go through my head. For him to leave and not have his shoes, code, you know, take his switch or his phone, stuff that I know that he want with him if he was going to run away. No. But for him to leave without shoes or anything else on there, the situation would have to be severe enough for him not to be able to grab that stuff.
Okay. Now, I don't disagree. Let me be clear on this. I don't disagree that if Sebastian was running away for good and he planned it, you know, he was fed up. He was fed up living with Chris and Katie, who I think are quite strict. He was fed up of that. But also he didn't want to live with Seth because he didn't want to do online school. So I think if he planned to run away, if there was any planning behind it, I think he would have taken some stuff with him. I think he may have taken his games console, not realizing that once he'd run away, he wouldn't be able to charge it. But, you know, I think it maybe have taken a coat. I think maybe if he genuinely did walk out the house barefooted, and I'm of the opinion, I'm 50-50 on it, I think it's quite possible that he had a pair of shoes that his parents wasn't aware of. And I'll keep saying that, and I'll keep saying that until Sebastian is found and he's barefoot. You know, if he genuinely walked away barefooted, I don't think he did that with the mindset of planning to run away permanently because he was fed up of his parents. However, if he'd just gone for a walk, he's not going to have taken his games console. Why would you take your games console if you're just going for a walk? You might not even take your phone. If you know, believe it or not, some teenagers book the stereotype and don't take their phone everywhere with them. If he'd been lured away and gone out to meet someone, then he may have been told not to take his phone, because if he had been lured away by someone with ill intent, which is very possible, although cops have said that they've cleared all the vehicles that were in the area. So I don't know what to make of that one. But if he'd just gone out for a walk, he wouldn't have planned. He wouldn't have taken anything with him, especially if he, you know, he's quite an impulsive young man. He's not going to have taken anything with him because it was a warm night. Contrary to popular belief, it was a warm night. So he probably didn't need a coat. So whilst I agree that if he planned to run away, he perhaps would have taken some stuff with him. But if he'd gone out for a walk and something horrible had befallen him while he was out for a walk, he wouldn't have planned it. He wouldn't have taken stuff out with him. Yeah, Katie said he was on Google, yeah, looking up Taylor Swift. So he did have access to the internet. Regardless of what all these parents are saying, he did have access to the internet. And if you've ever had a 15-year-old, do you know everything about your 15-year-old's life? No, you don't. You don't know who they're talking to. Should you know? No, I don't think you should. I think at 15, I think you should be giving them some freedom. And unfortunately, that has its negative side. But you know, we live in a very dangerous time for everybody. Taylor Swift's Nashville address. I don't know what he was looking up. I don't know whether he was looking up her address or whether he was looking up just her songs. I don't know. Why don't they want to snow at internet access? I don't know. I don't know. But things have come out. Now, clearly, he had more freedom at Seth's. You know, Seth originally said that whenever Sebastian was on his games console, like Seth was there. And that when Sebastian was talking to people on the internet, it was just Seth's friends. It was like people he knew. But then he said, well, actually, sometimes he was in one room and Sebastian was in another room. So he wasn't monitoring Sebastian. No, he didn't need to. Sebastian's 15. He didn't need to. You don't need to be sitting, hovering over his shoulder 24/7. That's not teaching a kid anything. That's not giving a kid the freedom they deserve at 15. Yes, there needs to be some level of monitoring, what a 15-year-old's doing on the internet, but you don't have to be hovering over them the whole time. So I don't blame Seth for being in one room and Sebastian being in another room when they're playing on games. Why would they need to be in the same room? They don't need to be in the same room the whole time. But I don't know why there's been this denial. You know, originally there was this denial that there was no way Sebastian could have got on the internet. When the things they're saying, they've said, prove that he wasn't always monitored and that he did have access to the internet. I mean, he would have had access to some internet at school as well. So, I mean, I don't know, like here, like, you know, they use the internet a lot for like the learning, but there's certain things that are blocked. So there's certain things that they can't look up on the school computers. I don't know whether it's the same there, but he did have access to the internet. I don't know why they denied that originally.
So, based on the information that I know about my son and this story that is being told by his mom, for him to have left between the times of falling asleep and 6 o'clock in the morning is straight bullshit.
It's not though, is it? It's not straight bullshit though, is it? Because even though Chris and Katie have said that Sebastian never kind of went out on his own, he did go out on his own. Two neighbours on the dispatch audio, two different neighbours, one on Stafford Court, one on Willow Bend, said that they'd seen him. The one on Stafford Court said that he was hiding under one of his vehicles. And then the one on Willow Bend said he'd seen him a lot in that neighbourhood previously, but not recently. So it's not bullshit. And Sebastian was left home alone sometimes. Seth has said it, that he left him home alone sometimes. And there's nothing wrong with that either. There's no blame here. But if he was left home alone, then how do they know what he was doing? How do they know what he was doing? They don't know what he was doing. And, you know, God forbid that he might have gone out for a walk. I genuinely think he went out a lot. I genuinely believe he went out a lot. And they wouldn't have known. And, you know, he's sneaking out. Maybe he was sneaking out just to go for a walk, just to clear his head. I think there was emotional turmoil there. I think there was a lot of unhappiness there. I think there was you know, maybe things that were being said between Katie and Chris, and then with Seth, that he wasn't happy about. I think maybe he understood that there was friction between them all. And he's a teenager. So you've got all the turmoil that, you know, just the happiest teenager in the world feels when, like, the hormones are changing and the brain is rewiring itself. I mean, the brain is literally rewiring itself at that age. So, you know, you forgive your teenagers for being difficult to understand or erratic, because their brain is literally rewiring itself, ready for adulthood. So you've got all that as well. So the emotional turmoil, the fact that he might have been sad about certain things, maybe he went out at night when it was quiet to clear his head. And this time, something, unfortunately, befell him. So I don't think it's bullshit at all. I think Seth is saying it's bullshit because it's a way he can blame Katie. That's what I think.
And she knows that's how I feel about it.
Have you?
Yeah, like a second toddlerhood. It is. It's like trying to understand your body and understand your feelings and understand the way that the world is different towards you. There's a whole bunch of stuff, you know, around the time of, you know, a boy of Sebastian's age going through puberty. You know, he was starting to get facial hair. He was starting to, he'd had this massive growth spurt. So he was clearly going through puberty. And it's a difficult time. It's a difficult time for everybody. I agree, Buttercup Baby. People are underestimating the intelligence. They are. Like, in one breath, they say he's such an intelligent boy, like he could play chess. And then on the next breath, and I'm saying all parents here, not just one, I'm saying them all. They've all made statements like this. That in one breath, they say he's so intelligent, blah, blah, blah. And then in the next breath, they'll say that he was like a 10-year-old. Well, maybe he was. Like, yes, he had 6q27 chromosomal deletion syndrome, which created some symptoms. He was diagnosed autistic, which had its own set of symptoms. So there would have been perhaps emotional volatility because of his conditions. And that's also in the mix of, you know, going through a normal level of puberty, having emotional turmoil in his family that he probably wasn't happy about. The prospect of going living with Seth, I don't think he was happy about. I think maybe he was happy to go and stay with Seth because he got more freedom. But I don't think he was happy to go and live with Seth because he didn't want to do online school. He didn't want to do online school. But maybe he felt he couldn't say anything. So he took the law into his own hands, and he would go out and clear his head when he can't sleep. They've all said he's had problems with sleep. All of them have said that he's had problems with sleep. So what do you do when you can't sleep? Well, according to Katie, he goes and gets snacks. So what do you do? Go and sit and eat a bunch of snacks, like binge eat? Well, he doesn't honestly look like he binge eats because he's very thin. So he's obviously burning all the calories that he's consuming in the night. He's burning those calories somehow. Yes, he's growing. And, you know, teenage boys are like bottomless pits. You know, they can eat loads and they don't seem to put on weight. But he's burning those calories. He's burning those calories. And, you know, Katie said that he was always into sugar. Why is he into sugar? Because he wants quick energy. So rather than sitting there, like eating all the sugar in the world throughout the night when they're asleep, he's probably doing other stuff as well. He's probably playing games. And then when it's a warm night, he goes out. Maybe he takes snacks with him when he goes out. I'd be interested to know if there was any food missing. We've never heard anything like that. Did they not hide a camera to catch him sneaking snacks? Well, they knew he was sneaking snacks. I don't know that they'd need to set up a camera to watch him sneaking snacks. They knew he snuck snacks. Yeah, sons at that age are all legs, yeah. I want to know. It was the food missing. Maybe they didn't keep a careful track of, literally how much food they had. Like I probably couldn't say if someone came in and took a bunch of food. I don't know that I'd notice. I'd notice if it was mine, because I'm very picky. I only eat certain things. So I'd know if it was my stuff, but just general stuff, I probably wouldn't notice. But it would be interesting to know. So he was a normal teenage boy. He was a normal teenage boy, despite his chromosomal deletion syndrome, despite his autism. He was a normal boy, a very intelligent boy that they've all underestimated, including all three parents have underestimated him. All of them. And maybe they were all treating him like a little kid, and he was feeling a lot like a man now. Again, normal. So maybe that's a good point. They probably overemphasized the autism so that people wouldn't think he's just another 15-year-old runaway. That's very possible. That's very possible. I haven't thought a bit like that, but yeah. Probably right.
Been involved or heard of any other incident where he disappeared or got lost in the past?
Never.
Well, you don't know him then, Seth. You don't know him. And why would Seth know that? Because for the majority of Sebastian's day-to-day life, he lived with Katie. And he only lived with Katie because he only saw Seth once every 2 weeks for the weekend, picks him up on the Friday, drops him off on the Sunday. So maybe when he's with Seth, he doesn't wander out, maybe. Or maybe Seth doesn't know. But maybe Sebastian doesn't wander out at Seth because he doesn't know that area as well, perhaps, because he's only there once every 2 weeks, perhaps. And that's just a speculation. But when he's at Katie's, Chris is way working. Like, only comes home, like, certain weekends. So, essentially, it's just Katie and Sebastian. So, when Katie has to go out to work and Sebastian's not at school, Sebastian's on his own. And there's nothing wrong with that. He's 15. Nothing wrong with that. So, in certain ways, he's treated like a young man, which he is. And in other ways, they treat him like a baby, which he isn't. Could anyone explain this chromosome disability? Every person I grew up around that had that didn't reach 40. No, it's I've got a whole live stream on it, and it's not life limiting. It's on Michelle Walks, and it's called, so if you go and check it out, Michelle Walks, hold on. So it's over on Michelle Walks. If you don't know that I've got a second channel, I do. So I cover a bunch of stuff over there. And it is called, is it on Michelle Walks? There we go. Sebastian Rogers and 6q27 chromosomal deletion syndrome. And it was one of the first videos I did on this case, and not a lot of people have watched it. It's only had 5.2k views, and I'd never heard of it before. I've heard of other chromosomal disorders, of which there are many, but I did some research on it, and I shared the research I'd found on this live stream, and I wish it should have been one of the most watched videos of the entire case, because this is something that Sebastian was diagnosed with as a baby. It's something that, defined his life in a lot of ways. I think probably more so than autism, because he was only diagnosed with autism last year. But people are just not talking about it. And I've seen a few people ask questions about it, and then they don't bother to go and actually look to see if anybody's covered it. And there it is. There it is, right there. So Michelle Walks from 2 months ago. All right. Okay. So no, if Sebastian was going out and about on his own, Seth wouldn't know. Seth wouldn't know.
Betty,
Mm-hmm.
I will tell you that I had a private conversation initially with CP and KP, and I asked them very directly, and I know there's been some contradictions, but I asked them if it was normal for him to just walk out of the house regardless of the time of day, and they both in unison said absolutely not.
Well, that's not absolutely true, because what Chris has actually said, and he said this on Queen Bee's channel only a few days ago, when he was asked, is it possible that Sebastian could have been sneaking out? And Chris said, yeah, we wouldn't have known. If we were asleep, we wouldn't have known. And Chris is way less likely to have known that, because Chris was hardly ever there. So they're all assuming stuff about Sebastian and not thinking that he's got a life of his own, a mind of his own. And Tony is just there to shit stir. Tony. Oh, Tony. If it's the Tony Mathis in my Facebook group who's reporting posts when anybody says anything negative towards Seth in my Facebook group, who reports it? Who reports to me, admin, calling it hate speech? It's not hate speech when someone has an opinion that's negative about Seth. That's an opinion. That's not hate speech. If someone's really, really nasty, then yeah, that crosses the line. So, yeah, Tony Mathis in my Facebook group. It might not be the Tony Mathis, but there's someone in my Facebook group called Tony Mathis who is watching the posts there. Anyhow, next timestamp, we've got 107. Well, I'm missing a lot here. Like I said, I'm just doing selected timestamps. I'll come back to some of the other stuff. Maybe in the coming days. Yeah, TikTok Toxic Tony. TikTok Toxic Tony. Say that 3 times fast. Tony insulted JLR too. He's insulting everybody. Yeah. I see you. I see you, Tony. I see you. I see you. Do we only have the one FB group? Yes. Tony was in your Facebook group. Saw some comments in there. Did you? All right. So it is the Tony then. Well, if he keeps reporting posts, he's going to get banned. Just saying. Yeah. Tony's a problem. Tony's a problem. All right. 107.
That's it. I don't believe in this medication and stuff that he was taking. I never did. And one of the reasons she divorced me is because I refused to sign off on any type of pharmaceutical medication for my son, because I believed in home remedies. He had ADHD, then give him this. Got into arguments with psychologists at the school. You want to give him a cup of coffee every 2 hours. Well, you want to give him a pill every 4. Mm-hmm. I'd rather give him a cup of coffee and his kidneys will filter it out and he goes and takes a leak, instead of building stuff up in the system. And you're giving him Ritalin. You're giving him basically pharmaceutical meth. What are you trying to do to our kids?
Yeah. All right. Look, I know it's a difficult subject to broach, giving kids medications for conditions like ADHD. However, if Katie divorced Seth because Seth wouldn't sign off on Sebastian having medications, I've got a big problem with their relationship. I don't believe that Katie divorced Seth for just that reason. I think there was a lot of things wrong with that relationship. Now, I have read through the divorce papers that have come out on one video, but I've never really dwelled on the divorce because it was years ago. It's their personal business. I didn't need to see those divorce reports personally. I didn't need to see them. But I think Seth is creating his own history. Is it totally true that Katie divorced Seth because he didn't agree with giving Sebastian medications? Seth has control issues just like Chris. It's exactly what I've been saying, NB Annie. It's exactly what I've been saying. The two sides of the same coin. They're both angry. I think Seth controls it less well than Chris. And Chris has said some stuff that I really don't agree with. He really has. They're both the same. They're both the same type of personality. And Seth has problems controlling himself. Yeah, that's true as well. Notice he's always getting into it with psychologists, doctors, judges, etc. Yeah. He passes blame off to everybody else. And look, I know a lot of people don't agree with giving kids things like Ritalin, which are essentially amphetamines. It's not meth, but it is a form of amphetamine in relatively low doses. But it is proven, it's proven science that kids with ADHD, you actually give them a stimulant and it helps them. But is it the same thing, giving him a cup of coffee every 2 hours? Would that work the same way? Not exactly. Because although of the same family, caffeine is not the same as amphetamines. It's the same family though. So giving him a cup of coffee every 2 hours, would that help him? I don't know. But using home remedies to treat conditions that maybe would be improved if on medication, I'd at least try the medication. I'd at least try it. ADHD medications react the opposite with true ADHD sufferers. Yeah. People who have ADHD calm down when given stimulants. It's weird. Coffee for ADHD doesn't seem to fit. It does though. It does work. Also cigarettes, like nicotine, like it basically any stimulant, any form of stimulant calms you down if you're a genuine sufferer of ADHD. And caffeine is of the same family as amphetamines. So the amphetamines that they give you when you've got ADHD, like such as Ritalin, there are others, they're similar to caffeine. They're similar in some ways to meth, but they're, it's a controlled dose. and they only give you small dose. And how it actually works in the brain, different than just a regular person. It's very interesting. It seems to calm you down. I think if you have a kid who's suffering really badly with ADHD, you know, they're suffering at school, they can't concentrate, they're getting into fights, they're getting into trouble, they're impulsive. Is it fair to let that kid carry on like that rather than giving them medication, or at least trying to see whether it does help? I'd at least try it. Let's put it that way. I'd at least try it. So I think Seth there is doing what Seth normally does. Blame everybody else. And thinks that he knows better than everybody else. And I don't like that. I really don't like that. I really don't like that. Anyway, moving on, 117.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure. I'm sorry. This is just one of those. Take a deep breath, relax.
And this is probably gonna, my next questions are gonna kind of be geared toward Chris. So, according to Chris, both of you guys spoke. What he's told the world is basically you guys speak regularly. Is that true, and how often?
About Sebastian, yes.
Yeah.
But obviously, he's feeding me a line of bullshit every time I fucking spoke to him. And my phone number's still the same. And I know he's probably watching, he's probably in chat. Hi, Chris. Fuck off.
You see, that's childish. I'm sorry, that's really childish. I'm not happy with that. Chris and Katie have said nothing negative about Seth. In fact, they've done completely the opposite. In the first interview that they did with the news, I think Katie said that they get on quite well with Seth. But Chris said, oh, we get on great. We get on great. We all work together as a team. Now, it turns out that what Chris was doing in that early interview was, not telling the truth. I think they don't get on. I think Chris and Seth can have a conversation. But Seth and Katie, I think Seth would just, I think he's blinded by this love-hate thing that he has with Katie. So it's probably better for him to deal with Chris. And they've never, even though it's kind of come out that the relationship between all the three parents wasn't all roses and butterflies and, skipping through a meadow of clover together. It was nothing like that at all. But at least Chris and Katie they've never retaliated. They've never come out and blasted Seth. They never have. And those comments like Chris F off just sound childish. This is a missing child's case. His child, who I truly believe he loves, who I truly believe he's desperate to find. What you're doing is nothing but creating drama. And look at Tony's face. Look at Tony's face when he said, Chris, fuck off. I know you're watching. Look at Tony's face. You can just imagine what these two are like when they're on their own. And I don't like it. I really don't like what he's doing. Seth thinks Katie OD'd Sebastian on meds. That's something he said to Nancy Grace that got took out of the latest show that she did. It got took out. Blissful, thank you for gifting a membership. That's very kind of you. And that's gone to Viv. So congratulations, Viv. Get a month's free membership, courtesy of Blissful and an Essence. Yeah, says true colours shining through in a crisis. He's angry. He's an angry man. Imagine Sebastian being in the middle of all that lot. Imagine it. You've got Seth on one hand, who'll be raging about certain things, and then you've got Chris on the other hand, who's also a hothead, who's also heavy-handed and overly strict. Sebastian's stuck between the rock and a hard place, and somewhere in the middle is Katie. Sebastian has got nowhere to turn, like the male figures in his life. Is there any wonder why Sebastian was having behavioural problems? Why he's got anger issues? Because what is he doing? He's copying the male role models in his life who are both angry, who both use violence, minor violence, to get their own way. I can't. They're both as bad as one another. But in relation to Sebastian, at least Chris and Katie have never retaliated. And I hope they don't. I hope they just, take it on the chin. And, probably swearing up and down about how horrible Seth's being in private, which they've got a right to do. But that's just wrong. That's just blindly wrong. And Tony, look at his face. Look at his face. He's the manager, whatever he calls himself, PR person, who was meant to be united, both sides of the family. And then Seth says something ridiculously childish, and then you get this appearance. Somebody who was a genuine PR person, would have been appalled that Seth had done that. They'd have been appalled at it. But no. And no, I don't believe that Katie overdosed Sebastian on medication. But that's just me. Next timestamp, 147. Okay. I can't even remember what's on some of these timestamps. But it's just stuff that I thought was interesting. Tony is the instigator. It looks like that, doesn't it? It looks like Tony is a big part of the problem.
That's the situation before I walked in. There was law enforcement was everywhere, in and out the door, so on and so forth. By the time I got there, the dog people were there and the drone people were there.
So this is talking about when he got there on the morning of the 26th. So by the time he got there, so remember, he left work at 7:20. So we'll get the map back up again. So he got to his vehicle in the garage at the sheriff's office at 7:20 and saw Chris's text message. So apparently he drove straight there. So he should have been there 31 minutes. Oh, it's gone up to 36 minutes now. Oh, there's problems. If you're driving on this road here, what's that road? I can't see it. I-65 and I-24. You've got a traffic build-up just north of Nashville. So yeah, that's your travel news. That's your travel news for today. So take a different route. Ooh, it's gone up to 44 minutes. I did swear down. I said originally that it was about 45 minutes. And I think it would have been the last time I checked. Maybe there was some traffic. But in the middle of the night, then you could definitely have done it in half an hour. So let's say that now he's leaving. This is going to be rush hour, isn't it? Like 7:30. Like people are going to be out and about, going to work, going to school, all that kind of thing. So the traffic may have been backed up a little bit. So let's say an hour. Let's say it took an hour for Seth to get there. So he's going to have got there, let's say 8:30. So by the time he got there, yes, it's true. He's telling the truth. The dogs were there. Max had already found that track by 8:30. Max had already been out and found that track. The drone people were already there. So law enforcement had really kicked into gear. They'd really got things going on that early morning. So this is what this conversation is about, that first morning.
I was the last one to this stupid fucked up party.
You weren't the last one to this stupid fucked up party, because Chris didn't get there till early afternoon. Because Chris was 3.5 hours away, and Chris had to wait to be relieved. So he couldn't just walk off the job site. He had to wait to be relieved. So I think it was early afternoon by the time Chris got there. So Chris was the last one to the party. But Chris's mother was there. Like, Chris called his mother to say, could she go and sit with Katie? And I don't know whether Chris's sister was there, but I know his mother was.
What was it like when you arrived at the home outside of the craziness from law enforcement? You know, what was the behavior of the people, Katie and other people that were there?
When I walked in, Katie said something to me and then shoved her phone in my face. There was a picture of Sebastian, the one that you see him with his optimism shirt on. Mm-hmm. That kind of confused me on why she's shoving a picture of Sebastian in my face. I know what my son looks like.
Again, that's another ridiculously childish comment. I know what my son looks like. So, of course, they're talking about this picture that's on the Amber Alert. So I don't know why Katie showed Seth the picture that we see here on the Amber Alert. Maybe she was saying, I've given him this picture for the, because originally he was only Amber Alerted the day after, but they'd have wanted a recent picture of Sebastian, and that was taken that weekend. That's only like 2-3 days old, that picture, when he went missing. So that's probably the most recent picture maybe that Katie had, and maybe she held up her phone to show him that that's the picture that she'd given the cops, I'm assuming. Like when my son was killed, like the first responding officers who became the family liaison people, they asked us for a recent picture to give to the press, because they said, because at that time, like it was like very early in the investigation, like they didn't know whether it was a motor vehicle collision. They assumed it was to do with a motor vehicle collision because they already had somebody in jail for it, like being questioned at least. But he wasn't talking. They didn't know whether it was a murder, so it like made to look like a motor vehicle collision. So they got us to do a press release and give a recent photo to the press with the opinion, and I agreed with it, the opinion that if you give nothing to the press, if it turns out to be a murder, if it turns out to be, you know, a high profile case, the cops were absolutely right to get ahead of it, because they say if you don't give anything to the press, what the press do is make it up. So they'll try and find anything they possibly can, and some of the stuff that they find might not be what you want them to know about right at this moment in time. So they got us to do a press release. Like I wrote the press release, like the family liaison people helped me to write the press release, and we got a recent photo. So that's exactly what Katie would have been asked. Like, recent photo, tell us about Sebastian, tell us the basic details. And those are the basic details that ended up the day after on the Amber Alert. So that's why she'd have been showing him that picture. Not because she thinks he doesn't know what his son looks like. Dear me. Silly man.
Do you know why she did that?
No, still don't know why.
Well, I've just told you why.
I just started looking to see what I could see. Obviously, my son's not there.
How long were you there?
Turned around and I was there for a little bit.
I agree with you, Auntie Ree. The two men in Katie's life accuse her of being so emotional if she sheds a single tear. That's reactive abuse, and it's why she's not showing emotion. Exactly. She shows all the hallmark signs of an abused woman or an abused person. And I think she's chosen two men who are very similar in key ways. They're very angry. I think of the two, I think Chris has it more together than Seth. I think Chris controls it better than Seth. But still, Chris is controlling. I certainly could not. I couldn't spend any amount of time with Seth. Seth would wind me up very quickly. Me and Seth would fall out very quickly. Me and Chris, I don't think we could get on for any length of time. I think I could have a conversation with Chris. I think I could have a useful conversation with Chris. I don't think I could live with him though. I don't think I could. I could be a friend to Chris. Like, I don't know, because I don't know the guy. I've never spoken to him. This is just from what I've seen on interviews. I may feel differently if I did know them. But Katie shows all the hallmark signs of somebody who has been abused. And the hatred that she's getting, I feel so bad for her. And if you come into my comments saying that I'm a Katie supporter, well, of all the three parents, Katie's the one that I actually feel something for. That said, as I always say, if law enforcement bring out evidence that leads me to believe Katie had something to do with it, then I would say so. I wouldn't defend her. I would not defend her if definite information came out, not just things that people don't like, not just because, I don't know, she blinked her eyes in a certain way, not that kind of stuff, but actual evidence from law enforcement, then my opinion of her would change completely. I would say, look, she's an abused woman, and I feel bad for that. However, she's likely, according to law enforcement, to have done this, this, and this to Sebastian, and she's now a suspect. So again, it's about being able to differentiate two different types of things here. Like, I don't like what Seth is doing, but I don't think he had anything to do with Sebastian's experience. It doesn't sway me to think that he's a suspect. I just think he's an angry man, and he's not being very good here. But also, I don't like how Chris has behaved either. But I think Chris has it more together than Seth does.
Just enough to talk, to find out what was going on, to find out if they had any evidence or if anything, to hear the evidence that was being said. And then I jumped in my truck and started looking for my son.
Immediately.
Within 30 or 45 minutes. I don't like a lot of people around me to begin with.
Mm-hmm.
And obviously my son's not there.
I agree with what he did there. Is this a new interview? Yes, Karen. This happened overnight my time. So what was it? 11 hours ago. This came out. This was live 11 hours ago. Chris is a cakewalk, having been married to Seth. Yeah, you're probably right. You feel bad for Katie that allowed a stepfather to abuse her child. I feel bad for Katie in the respect that I believe she's an abused woman. I don't agree with what Chris has done. I don't agree with the form of discipline that Chris has given Sebastian, and I've said that all the way through, again and again and again. After it came out that Seth Chris was using a belt on Sebastian. I've said, I bet it was more than once. I said that's probably the tip of the iceberg. There's probably other things. Whether Katie agrees with it, Katie may agree with that form of discipline. We don't know. But if she does, then she's wrong as well. But I can differentiate between certain things that are wrong, that they've done wrong, and any suspicion I have in relation to them as being directly responsible for Sebastian's disappearance. And however negative I feel towards Seth for certain things that he says, like the childish comments and just the silly stuff that he says, and the things that he's let out about Sebastian that I don't think should be in the public domain, I can differentiate that from thinking he's a suspect. Likewise, I can differentiate things like Chris being angry about things and saying stuff he shouldn't, and Chris using discipline techniques that I do not agree with. I can differentiate that from thinking Chris is a suspect. Likewise, I can differentiate my opinion of Katie, feeling empathy or sympathy towards her as an abused woman, and then simultaneously going along with or even agreeing with the form of discipline that Sebastian was having. I feel the sympathy for the fact that she, in my opinion, is an abused woman. But I cannot agree, I cannot endorse the type of discipline that was being used. So I hope that answers the question. I don't think it was a question, but it was a statement. Michelle, I have a question. The footprint they found, did they say the print was barefoot or of shoes or print with a sock? I don't remember. They found boot prints and a footprint. I don't think they can tell what socks it was wearing, but the footprint wasn't Sebastian's. It was too small. It was a child's footprint. We know that Sebastian had large feet. He was a size 10.5. So the boot print, we don't know anything about that. We don't know the size of it. We can assume it was maybe boot prints left by the construction workers because they'd be wearing boots. But the footprint was not Sebastian's. So we've talked about that at some length in a live stream previous. I may be wrong, but I thought Seth said he used a belt too. Yeah, I've heard that as well, but I don't know we've got that confirmed. Katie was 12 or 13 when Seth started grooming her. That's a topic that I've chosen not to discuss on this channel, but I am aware. One boot print. I don't know how many boot prints they found, but the ground, they said on the dispatch audio, was hard packed, so it was all dry and hard because it's clay, so clay sets really hard when it's dry. So there were no footprints or boot prints or anything except for near the pond where the ground was muddy. So I don't know how many boot prints. But the footprints, the bare footprints, were not Sebastian's. They were too small. So that's that.
And I'm under the assumption that he just walked out. So I jumped in my truck and started looking.
Michelle, if he wore Katie or Chris's shoes, who would the dogs have smelled? They were scent specific, searching for Sebastian's scent. So they would have ignored any smell of Chris or Katie, because that's not the scent that they were focused on. So Sebastian can't get in the pond without leaving a footprint. I don't know whether all sides of the pond were muddy. I don't know the answer to that. But you know yourself, like when it's been wet and then the ground dries, there's just certain parts that stay wet for longer. you know, maybe that, you know, have not benefited from, you know, the sun being directly on it. So I don't know. I don't know how muddy the pond area was. It might have just been one side that was muddy. Because the pond actually has quite steep sides. So it might just have been the side that's shallower that was muddy. So in other words, depending on the other sides of the pond, he probably could have got in the pond without leaving prints. Okay, Seth said yesterday that there was a CPS case against him because Sebastian said he beat his butt. Oh, yeah. Seth said he beat his butt in a video game and teachers misunderstood. Yeah, that was ridiculous. That's ridiculous. So Seth has had the CPS called on him because Sebastian has told teachers that he's been beaten. And once again, Sebastian was gaslighted and said that it wasn't a real beating. So we've heard the same conversation from Chris. So now we've got Sebastian being gaslighted by Chris, and we've got Sebastian being gaslighted by Seth. Is anybody going to still argue that these two men are not the same sides, are not different sides of the same coin? Does anybody want to argue against me? Because when I said that in a video ages ago, I got loads of comments saying they're not the same at all. They're not the same at all. They are. They're very similar. Chris has got his life together more than Seth has, but the core personality of these two men is very similar. My opinion. You can't sue me for slander. That's just my opinion. Yeah, Seth has anger issues, yeah. I think Sebastian was scared. I think he was scared of Seth, and I think he was scared of Chris. Do the dogs ever be given the scent of the last person to see the missing person to see if they track the same route or not? No, I've never heard that. I mean, I'm not saying it's never happened, but it's not something that I've heard that search teams do. Because when it's a missing person, they just want to find that person. You know, they're working at speed. They're trying to find that person alive and well. So if somebody's like a child, a vulnerable person, you know, they've got reason to believe that they've, you know, wandered off into a dangerous situation. Well, time is of the essence. So they're not interested in searching down someone that they might have been with recently. What would be the point of that? They need to find the person. So giving the dogs 2 scent articles would just confuse them. No, that would confuse them. The 2 sides of the same coin are 2 cheeks of the same arse. Oh, that's brilliant. I'm stealing that. There's also, Seth, unbelievable story about Sebastian saying Seth punched him in the head. Well, we saw in the divorce papers that was what Katie was alleging, that a teacher had allegedly witnessed Seth hitting Sebastian on the head. But it's just allegations. But I think Sebastian was not a happy young man. I think he was being treated. I think in many ways, you know, he was treated well. In other ways, he was treated horribly. And I don't think the good things make up for the bad things in a teenager's mind.
Driving up and down the roads, screaming for my son.
Oh, yeah. The point I was going to make here was I'd have done this, right? I couldn't have sat around doing nothing I'd have wanted to go out and look. And if that meant driving around screaming the name, that's what I would have done. So I agree with Seth here.
Did you stay with Chris and Katie there for several nights?
I didn't stay the night, if that's what you're asking. Hell no.
Okay, so you guys didn't sleep. Well, because I had heard rumors that you and your family stayed there, and I was going to ask you about some.
No,
I agree with Betty here. That's exactly what I thought as well. I thought he'd stayed there for 3 days, and then he'd stayed there the Monday, the Tuesday, and then on the Wednesday they'd had an argument about the GoFundMe. That's what I was always under the impression of. But so I agree with what Betty's saying here, that's what was everybody thought, I think. So that wasn't true. He didn't stay there. He fell asleep in Katie's driveway. What, Seth did? Did he really? I'd never heard that. Well, he had been working all night. Fair play to him. He had been working all night. So we're assuming Sebastian isn't lying or exaggerating. Kids don't lie is the giant mistake that people made in the Sophie Long case. Well, do kids lie? Yeah, kids lie sometimes. Would Sebastian be lying multiple times that different people were hitting him? I don't know. Don't know that he would. But I don't know Sebastian, so I don't know. Is he a chronic liar? If he has a history of lying, then maybe you'd be suspicious of it.
Monday, Tuesday, and Wednesday, they told us not to search. All right. They told us not to be getting out and walking through the forest and shit like that, looking for Sebastian. That they didn't want one of us to go missing while we're looking for our son.
That's always what they say to parents. And if that's what they said, they don't want them to go missing. Well, yeah, they probably don't want them to go missing. But there's 2 more important reasons why they don't want parents searching. One, that the parents are the initial suspects. Always. In a missing child's case, they always side-eye the parents. They want the parents close. They want the parents where they can see them, where they can observe them, where they can watch their mannerisms, their behaviors, where they can talk to them in an informal setting and get some initial, feel for, is this person problematic? Is this person going to be somebody that we look at very closely? So they don't want them searching for that reason. They don't want them to, be throwing the searchers off the scent if they've hidden the body somewhere. So they don't want the parents out there for that reason. Also, they don't want the parents out there in case the child is dead and the parent actually is the one that finds that child dead, because they're very likely to pick that child up, cradle them, cry all over them, the normal human response that you'd have if you found your child dead. They don't want that because it's a potential crime scene. So those are the reasons why they don't want parents out searching. Chris and Katie have abided by that. It doesn't mean to say that they've not done other things to help find Sebastian. Like Chris and Katie have contributed to the Bill Bunn Fund. And they've also, Katie's been doing stuff behind the scenes as well in relation to getting Sebastian's name and the flyers out. But they've not gone out searching because that's not what law enforcement wants them to do.
I understand that. It's why I did my searching out of the vehicle. Mm-hmm. Driving around, hollering for my son, going up and down every road, looking as far as I can see, screaming for his name, almost went and bought a bullhorn.
I got a couple around here. I can send you one. You might have to buy batteries. I wear them out, but I got an extra.
I think it's a little too late. I don't think he's, in the area.
What was Katie's demeanor like that morning when you got there?
It's really kind of hard to explain. But
Was she acting normal?
shoving her phone in my face, had a picture going, see, we're at BJ's yesterday and everything was fine. And I'm like, trying to prove something to me. That's not how you.
Statement.
It's not how you prove something to me. On top of that, that picture wasn't taken BJ's, it was taken at Costco, and it's like you're already throwing false information in my face.
Do you think they actually went to BJ's or no?
I have no idea.
Gotcha.
Well, look, she's panicking because her kid's missing. You know, you got to forgive her for getting a detail wrong about where a picture was taken. But that's just me. So when there was that massive long pause, maybe it's because, you know, he's trying to think of something negative to say when he knows full well deep down that she was in a state of absolute panic and shock.
I was just asking. That wasn't on my list, but you were saying that, and that does sound like a really odd statement. Convincing language, so to speak.
Doesn't work on me.
Yeah.
I get plenty of liars at work. You know,
I bet you're almost like a human lie detector.
So now he's equating Katie, presumably, to the inmates that he deals with when he's at work. Okay.
Well, I look at him and I call inmates on their bullshit. You know, it's like, don't try to bullshit me. It's not going to get you anywhere. You know, be as honest as you can with me. I'll be as honest as I can with you. You know, it's a respect factor.
And in my opinion, Chris and Katie have been nothing but respectful, at least in the public, towards Seth. Seth has not returned that favor.
Mutual respect.
Diving in. Do you think she was bullshitting you?
Yeah.
That morning. What?
Yeah. That's why she doesn't like my opinion. That's why when I told Chris I needed to speak to Katie, well, you can't do that unless I'm there.
Seth was homeless. When Katie kicked him out, he was homeless. He had nowhere to go. He lived in his car. So, didn't have a friend or family member that was prepared to put him up, you know, do a bit of sofa surfing till he got, you know, himself together. But now he was living in his car. So they've been kicked out of military housing because of Seth's anger. And when they split up, Seth was reduced to living in his car.
I don't care. You can be there too, buddy.
Wow. What was she wearing?
I don't remember. She was dressed. I mean, obviously,
dressed?
there was people in the house. So.
Right. But I just didn't know if she was in her pajamas or she was dressed.
So Betty, if the sale is that you were told not to look and you were told to stay home in case your child came home, then we could buy that if they actually stayed home, correct?
Right.
They only left when Chris went back to work and Katie was too scared to stay in the house by herself.
What was the weather like there? Was it raining or snowing?
Oh, wait for this one. You guys, are you still going to say that it's 28 degrees? Because your hero Seth is here to tell you the weather report. So you don't believe me, so listen to your hero Seth. All right. What was the weather like? Not the bloody weather again. I know.
Day, was it cold? Like, can you?
First day was pretty decent. I mean, I think that low first night was 50. The next night.
Oh, the first night was 50. Oh, was it? Oh, the first night was 50s. The weather was warm.
It got colder, and then I think on the third night, on Wednesday, I think it was 20 degrees. And
correct. It was the Wednesday. So that would have been the 28th. Exactly like the weather report said. It was actually, I think the 27th into the 28th. I think the nightly low was in the 30s. I don't think it was as cold as in the 20s, but it was in the 30s. So you guys, I told someone this morning in my comments, so it was a comment to yesterday's live stream. Someone said that I was wrong about the weather. So I told them they better go to every weather site on the internet that contains weather, like historic weather reports for Hendersonville, Tennessee, because clearly this person knows way better than any of the other any weather site that you look up. Anyhow, next timestamp, where are we at? 150, 156. We might have even, oh no. Am I going to just let it run or not? My next timestamp's 156, which is only like 2.5 minutes away, so I might as well just let it run, I think. And then we've got 2 other timestamps coming, 2:11 and then 2:31 right at the end. So right at the end of this, Betty has collected some questions, so they were like quick fire questions. So I want to just pick through some of them. So I'm going to let this run for a couple of minutes. It's 14C. No, it's 22C, and I'm just right. Oh, you're obviously cold-blooded, Pinto. You're like a snake. You need it to be warm to be functional. 14 degrees is comfortable for me. So what's 14 degrees in Fahrenheit? It's like 50 something. Hold on. I have my phone set for Fahrenheit now. 14C in F. I remember in the old days, we had Fahrenheit here in the UK. At what point did they change it? Because I remember when I was at school, we did temperature in Fahrenheit. And then they just suddenly changed it overnight. When was that? Was it in the 80s somewhere? 1980s, was it? They suddenly changed it to Celsius. And it was terribly confusing. But anyway, because 70% of my audience is American, and when I talk about the weather, I have to convert it anyway. So I've just got my phone now to Fahrenheit. But 14 degrees Celsius is 57.2 degrees Fahrenheit. That's comfortable to me. That's just nice. That's a nice temperature. Nice temperature to go walking. Nice temperature just sit in the house. 22 degrees is way too hot. 22 degrees to Fahrenheit. What's that? 71. No, that's too hot. That's too hot. It's quite warm here today. I think it's maybe mid-60s. I don't know. I'm a little bit warm. It's not bad, but I'm a little bit warm. All right, I'll let this run for a couple of minutes, and then we've got the next timestamp coming up.
And then we had rain for the next 3 or 4 days, and pretty crappy fucking weather.
But it wasn't crappy weather the day he disappeared.
No.
Did the neighbors?
Boom. You dudes, guys, all the creators who are still... Oh, Noodle's barking. He heard me knocking. He thinks it's a knock at the door. He's thick at times. Anyhow, yeah, all you guys who watch creators who are still saying that it was in the 20s, even your hero Seth, you guys, you creators, I could name names here, but you guys, your hero Seth said it was warm that day.
Speak to you?
Briefly, one of the neighbors spoke to me, lovely lady that lives next door. She introduced herself. I'm horrible with names. But most of the time, the people that came over, I was just sitting in a chair. People kind of looked at me, and then they would have their conversations with Chris and Katie and Kathy and whoever else was there. There was some introductions, but I'm not one of those people you just introduce. I was watching their behavior.
Did the neighbors say anything odd? Was their behavior odd, or were they just appeared to be concerned?
Some of them appeared to be concerned.
No, Seth ain't no bloody hero, but for a lot of people, a lot of creators think that the sun shines out of Seth's arse. And look, once again, I genuinely 100% do not believe Seth has anything to do with Sebastian's disappearance. And I think he has done good in raising a lot of awareness. What I've got a problem with is the negativity. I've got a problem with the things that he said about Sebastian. Some of the stuff he should not have let out. And the negativity that him and Tony together now are drumming up against Katie and Chris. I have a problem with that.
Some of them brought their video footage over for Chris to look at.
Oh, well, that was good of them. So some of them brought their video footage over. That's interesting. So even that morning, it must have been the afternoon because Chris wasn't there. Chris wasn't there in the morning. I don't know what time Chris actually got there. I've heard 1 p.m, but I can't confirm that. So it would have been the afternoon that neighbours were coming over to show Chris their video footage. Surveillance video, presumably. You know, maybe saying, oh, well, maybe the lady across the road, actually I think Chris said it was a man, but the person across the road who had the video of Sebastian taking the trash out, maybe that was one of the videos. But maybe they were saying, look, we've got cameras and he's not on the cameras. He's not here. He's not on the cameras. Susan, welcome. Thanks for joining. Welcome to the Secret Agents Club. Thank you. Thank you. Showing a suspect the footage against them isn't a good thing. Yeah, but at that time, you know, all the neighbours like rallying round, you know, they're not going to think of somebody that's a neighbour of theirs as a suspect right at that moment, aren't they? They're trying to be helpful. Yeah, it sounds like Seth's behaviour is odd. He's just sitting there in a chair staring at people. Yeah. Yeah, who's that weird guy in the corner? Yeah, they would. That's true, James. Conservationism bias. It's actually confirmation bias. Some people, if presented with newer information contradicting earlier information, will stubbornly refuse to revise their opinions. That's absolutely true. So yeah, so one big confirmation bias, that they're sticking to the guns and will refuse to re-evaluate their theories. So I hope those people never go into law enforcement or law or basically any profession where it's perfectly fine to change your opinion when new information comes along. So did we ever get to see the video of the trash being taken out? No, it's never been released. Seth's seen it though, but we haven't seen it. It hasn't been released to the public. Is it YT blocking or are we getting reported at random? Is this the regular chat group getting blocked? I'm not seeing messages getting blocked. Like it comes up in the chat. If a mod times someone out or, you know, deletes a post, it tells me. So I don't know. I mean, I'm watching the chat regularly, but I may have missed some. But if comments are getting blocked, I can't help you. I don't know. But YouTube is weird. YouTube just randomly disappears comments. Does it to me in my own comment section. Sometimes I comment and then it just disappears. It's like literally just instantly gone and I've not said anything bad. I don't know. It's a glitch. You do see comments getting deleted, do you really? Hold on. I can't see any. I can see message retracted, but that's a person. That's the person themselves retracting it. So I don't know. I'm not going to dwell on it, but I don't know. Anyway.
So Chris got to see all the video footage. I didn't get to see shit.
Well, yeah, because you're the awkward guy in the corner staring at people. And Chris is the person who lives there. Chris is the person that the neighbours have the relationship with. Now, if Seth was like a normal person and just introduced himself and said, hi, I'm Sebastian's dad, maybe they'd have shown him as well. I don't think anybody was deliberately withholding information. The awkward guy sitting staring, probably like in an angry mood, is not going to be a person that, you know, somebody's going to just instantly take to, are they? Come on now.
That's quite
Still in the dark.
That's quite interesting. Was Chris friendly?
After Chris lost his cool, I couldn't stay there after Wednesday.
Lost his cool. How? I never heard this.
The GoFundMe my sister set up to help me pay my bills while I look for my son.
What was that
The
all over? Why did he
GoFundMe-
want you to stop?
hold on.
Why did he
Hold on.
threaten you?
Hold on. It was a GoFundMe that my sister.
Right. I can answer Betty's question here. The reason why Chris was angry is because the cops had told them that it's better that they don't set up GoFundMes because it can look bad. Now, that's what Chris has said. I don't know whether the cops actually said that, but they had a Barney over this GoFundMe that his sister set up, and that's the beginning of all of this massive tension that's still there to this day. It all started because of that GoFundMe. But in my opinion, Seth was looking for things to be negative about because he has a love-hate relationship with Katie. He's never got over Katie. So that's my opinion.
Set up for me to pay my bill.
Confirmation bias agree, but conservationism bias is a thing in and of itself, more about an individual ability to revise rather than actively seeking out confirmation bias. Oh, interesting. Good stuff. I'll remember that.
Why I look for my son. It wasn't set up as a reward. It wasn't set up as anything else. People want to know what happened to it. It was donated. I used it to pay my bills. I used it to put gas in my truck so I could drive an hour and a half down there, an hour and a half back. People.
You don't have to convince me because I know how expensive.
No, it's just a little annoying. If there would GoFundMe had been put up for a reward, yes, it would have been used as a reward, and I still have some of it, and I still won't touch a portion of it because I'm wanting to put it into the reward. But it has to be set up properly, and law enforcement has to literally approve of it.
Right. Gotcha.
You know, just because people want something done doesn't mean it happens. I'd like my son to be.
That's true, Liplocked. The question was, is Chris friendly? Not why did you leave? Yeah. Well, it's always about him, isn't it? That's the thing. It's always about him. You know, he can't just say, oh, yeah, Chris was friendly. And then maybe once he's talked about Chris being friendly, maybe then go on to the GoFundMe. Look, I don't have a problem with GoFundMes in principle. I don't have a problem with them in principle. People can choose whether to donate or not. I'm going to tell you that I haven't donated to Seth's GoFundMe. But if you have, then that's your choice. You can do whatever you want with your money. So I don't have a problem with GoFundMes in principle. I can understand why Chris might have been upset by it if it's true that they made an agreement that they weren't going to do GoFundMes. So, but yeah. Anyway, it's coming up to the timestamp that I wanted. Didn't really want to discuss the GoFundMe, so we're getting up to the timestamp now.
We found, and I'm looking.
When you were there and you saw Chris and Katie, did you see any injuries on their persons?
I was not paying attention to them.
You say you didn't see any scratches on Chris's arms?
I've seen pictures of the scratches and stuff afterwards.
Did that concern you at all?
Nothing I can do about it now.
Okay, so there was no injuries, right? If there was injuries, right, given that Seth has already said that he's sitting there observing everybody like a weirdo, if there were scratches on Chris's arms, wouldn't he have noticed? Wouldn't he have noticed? And he was there for 3 days straight. He might not have slept there, but he was there all day Monday, all day Tuesday, and then on the Wednesday, they had the argument. So he didn't notice scratches on Chris's arms. But yeah, whenever it was, when was that first interview? Was it like day 10? and there was some scratches on Chris's arms that I can't even see. But people seem to think that there were scratches on his arms, and apparently it was the dogs. He was playing with the dogs. Well, look, I get scratches all the time from dogs, so I can well understand that there could have been scratches from dogs. If they've recently had the nails clipped, they can be, you know, they can be quite sharp. But anyway, he didn't see any injuries. Didn't see any injuries because there weren't any. Right? No signs of a fight. Don't you think that the cops would also have been, you know, observing not only the behaviour of Chris and Katie, but also whether they appeared to have any injuries on them? Do you think? Do you think that might be something that they would have wanted to, you know, notice here?
Did you find any behaviors when Chris and Katie got together as and the reason why they were the last person to see your son? You know, I'm not trying to, you know, I don't want to put you in a
Their
position.
conversations are inappropriate for what was going on.
How do you mean?
Talking about the next vacation, the jewelry that, you know, I'm going to buy for that is Kathy wants jewelry and wants Christopher to buy it for her. I mean, the conversations were enough to make me sick, so I left to go try to find my son.
They were having these conversations in the house. Kathy was these people. What was your opinion of Kathy?
Okay, now that's weird. If that's true, that's weird. That Kathy is Chris's mother, but she's having some random conversation about something completely irrelevant. What were they doing? Just like making small talk to pass time, to normalize the possibly, you know, talking about just normal things, making small talk is something that people sometimes do in horrible situations to make things feel a little bit more comfortable. It could have been small talk. Not the type of conversation I have if there was a missing person. Not the type of conversation. I wouldn't want to engage in any small talk, but that's just me. But I don't know whether that's true or not. But anyway, Betty says, what does he think of Kathy?
My opinion of her?
Yeah.
Really going to piss off Chris if I sit there and tell you my opinion of her.
Have you met her before?
Yes, she was actually supposed to be helping me find a place to live. She's a realtor.
All right, so Chris had previously put him in touch with Kathy, who's a realtor. So not only did Chris encourage Seth to get the job at the sheriff's office, because Sebastian would like it if his dad had, you know, a sheriff's badge, and you know, be a you know a serving member of the public, but also he put him in touch with his mother to find him somewhere to live.
Has plenty of access to plenty of places.
She knows law enforcement. They have.
Oh, she has access to plenty of places. Well, maybe, Seth, maybe none of them were appropriate for him. Maybe all of them were out of his price range. Who knows? Maybe there was nothing that Seth liked. So why is that even an issue? Why is that even a problem? Yeah, Chris helped Seth get the job. Well, encouraged him to stick with the training, I think. Like he was going to drop out. He wants a handout. Yeah. It feels to me like Seth thought he was going to get like a, you know, reduced rate or whatever, or he's just going to be given a place to live. It's like, no, you can put someone in touch with a realtor who might have properties in your price range, properties in the area that you want. Well, they're not going to. What does he want? Mates rates? No, it's a business. They don't do that. Yeah, Kathy is Chris's mother, yeah. Is Seth hinting that she has a place she could hide someone? Maybe, but look, you know. No. Maybe that's what he's hinting at. I don't know. Anyway, next timestamp. I'm going to move on a little bit here. So again, I'm missing loads that's really interesting. You know, if I wanted to spend 6 or 7 hours, I'd have gone through it all. And I will come back to some of these points maybe tomorrow, but just for today, I'm just highlighting some things. But it's definitely worth a listen for those of you who haven't seen this. It's interesting. I'll put the link in the chat again, and the link for replay viewers is already in the description box. So this is Bullhorn Betty, Bullhorn Betty's channel. All right, so next timestamp 2:11. I've got that right. So we've just got this one and then another one. So there's this part here. Betty's like firing questions at them. So Seth goes away for a couple of minutes and then Tony's answering questions. I'll just set it back maybe a little bit further. Maybe 2:10. There we go.
It's been challenging. It's been challenging for all of us watching this from an outside looking in. You tell me a little bit about yourself and how you were drawn to this case or Caleb's case. But before you do that, well, and then after that, give us an update on Caleb, because there were some people in the chat that wanted to know what was going on in that case as well.
Okay, so over to Tony. So I wanted to just showcase Tony here. He's going to tell you that the reason why he's ended up as a PR manager for 2 cases is that he knows Randy Harris. So Caleb Harris is the young man, the college student from Corpus Christi, Texas. Many of you will know Caleb's case. He's been missing since the beginning of March, and he's disappeared under really, really weird circumstances. I did a live stream about Caleb's case a while ago, and I've never done an update, but there's not a great deal going on in his case. Young man in his early 20s. It was in the middle of the night. He was in his apartment, like college kind of apartment type place, with his roommates, and they were just kind of, having a relaxing day, playing some games, taking the dog for a walk, just usual stuff. And then his roommate goes to bed, and Caleb says he's going to stay up because the day after he's going fishing. So he orders some food from like DoorDash or whatever, Uber Eats or whatever, to deliver for his lunch the following day. So Caleb, after the roommate goes to bed, Caleb takes the dog out for one final time, brings the dog back, and then disappears. The last Snapchat he sent, was the last Snapchat to his sister? I don't know, to his sister, to a friend. I think it was his sister, was of a bridge. So we've not seen the message that was on the bottom of the Snapchat, but the Snapchat picture is of a bridge nearby to the apartments. And that was 2 something in the AM. And then minutes later, the phone goes off or is turned off. It may have run out of battery or it's turned off. And Caleb was never seen again. And there's no hide nor hair of him. And it's weird that in that case, Caleb went out barefooted. So it's another barefoot disappearance. Yes, his sister, thank you. It's like this young man that just goes for a walk barefooted. His DoorDash arrives, and the delivery driver leaves it at the doorstep because there's no answer. And then the following morning, the roommate finds the DoorDash like where the delivery person had left it, and he's missing. So they raise the alarm, and the family come over, and it's just insane. Another insane case. There's no sign of him. So Caleb Harris's dad, Randy, knew Tony, like in real life, like they're friends in real life. So Tony agreed to be the spokesperson for the family. So that's how he's got involved in being a spokesperson for people who've got missing family members. Then he heard about Seth from, he calls a mutual friend, and this is where Tony has come from. So that's just the background to Tony, just in case people are confused about where Tony came from. That's where he came from. So he's going to tell you his story.
Well, I got involved in Caleb's case because I'm very close to his father, Randy. We work together. We're very close friends. I started out in that case kind of like I did with Seth, kind of helping from behind the scenes, setting up some interviews, doing some things like that. And as he got further into that situation, he started requesting more and more and started hinting that it would be good if he had somebody by his side in Corpus Christi. So I went down there to Corpus Christi and, you know, I became kind of a project manager for him. I mean, I set up the, you know, places that the search and rescue team was searching. I worked with our Facebook administrator to, you know, to build volunteers and kind of give them direction. I brought the PI in, again, with some recommendations from our Facebook group and, you know, pushed for him to engage the PI and, you know, just had a lot of different roles there. And
what PI? So he arranged for a PI. So which PI? Because we've got Heather, who chose to step away. And we've also got Chloe, who was fired. So which PI did Tony bring in? Yeah, shut up, Tony, yeah. Which PI did he bring in? Because there's now no PIs on the case. One left because she couldn't deal with it because of the way that the case was like headed. The case was being run. And then we've got Chloe, who was fired for searching because Seth thought she shouldn't be searching. She should be doing, I don't know, something else. Oh, he's talking about Caleb. Thank you. Yeah, all right. He's talking about Caleb still. All right. So in Caleb's case, he brought a PI in. All right. Gotcha. That makes more sense.
You know, got his interview set up, coached him through those. Just kind of, you know, kind of gave him a strategy, laid out a strategy for him. And then as we moved through that case, it got to the point where that investigation turned more digital and there wasn't a need to keep doing interviews. Local searches became less necessary. And, you know, I met Seth through a common friend, and that common friend connected us together and told me that Seth really needed some help, that there were some areas that he felt like were deficient in his son's case. And when I started out with Seth simply wanted a qualified search and rescue team. And we spent 2 or 3 weeks talking in private about that. And I counseled him a little bit on some different things, some different strategies, some different interview strategies after watching some of his things. And
counseled him on interview strategies. So where is his credentials to counsel anybody on interview strategies? Right, because he sells cranes for a living. He's not a PR guy. He's a crane salesman or something. So where's his history of strategy in missing persons cases? And why, as it turned out, that they fired or made it difficult for people to continue who were qualified to do search and rescue? Because now we have people like Chloe, who is continuing to work on Sebastian's case, who is continuing to do the searches that she was doing anyway, just not with Seth and, you know, as a PI. And it's just crazy. And now there's Tony and Seth just sitting there talking about doing searches, talking about stuff, and doing absolutely nothing. Because Tony sitting nightly on TikTok, to me, isn't very beneficial. Because what Tony has brought to the table is things that are blatantly untrue, that law enforcement have had to come out and say were, in their words, garbage. So that's Tony's investment in this case, just bringing more rumours, more speculation, more conspiracy theories, none of them true. That's what Tony has brought to the table. That's Tony's strategy. Not a very good one. So I'll say again, where are Tony's credentials to counsel anybody on interview strategies? Yes, absolutely. You know, somebody having a quiet word with Seth saying, yeah, you coming on board, you know, shouting your mouth off, being angry, that's not a great interview strategy. However, earlier on in this interview, you saw it, where when when Seth told Chris to fuck off, you know, he said, I know you're listening, Chris, fuck off. Tony laughed. That's not a great PR guy to laugh at something that originally you were said that you were going to do. You're going to unite both sides of the family so that everybody will be working together for Sebastian. And you laughed when Seth said something inappropriate. So I don't believe it. I don't believe it. Did Betty pay Seth for this interview? I don't know, Blue Rose. I don't know the answer to that. I do not know the answer to that. He thought it was a roofer. I thought it was a crane salesman. Because there was a conversation early on whether Tony and Chris knew each other, because Chris is a crane operator and Tony's a crane salesman. But they don't. They haven't crossed. So I hadn't heard that he was a roofer. But anyway, doesn't sound very professional to me.
Got to the point where he told me that he really needed me to be a spokesperson for him, that he didn't want to be on camera, didn't want to set up interviews, that type of thing. And, you know, obviously, you know, our plan initially was to try to just take one spokesperson and have him represent all three. And we waited for a week and a half, 2 weeks for that to happen. And it got to the point where Seth was just saying, you know, I can't wait any longer. I need you to come help me, and with or without the other side. And, you know, it was a Friday.
Well, you've done nothing to encourage the other side to trust you in any way, shape or form. Just saying.
Actually, 4 weeks ago tomorrow, and I was out fishing, and I got a text from him that said, you know, I really need your help. Are you going to help me or not? And I just agreed to come on board and help him. So, and it's been nothing.
So the help, just to reiterate, the help has been sitting on TikTok on a nightly basis, bringing rumours, speculations and conspiracy theories to the table that a bunch of people have believed, and law enforcement have had to come out and say, no, that's garbage. Garbage. Anyhow, final timestamp. I could have let this play a bit further, but I'm going to just do this final timestamp, 2:30. Maybe about there.
Communication with me again. I have his shoes and I have his clothes here in the back.
All right, so this is about
the care for your son.
This is about the dog person. So he's now going to slag off the dog person.
Or do you know? I probably should answer that. Maybe if you want to answer it, answer.
No,
it.
no.
Okay. Julia said she is not communicating with the family. That she's just going to concentrate on searches. I believe she said she got sent from stuff from LE is what's being said.
Well, I wasn't informed of that.
So this is in relation to Julia, who is the dog handler, who Tony said was part of the team. But Julia is out on her own doing searches with her two dogs. And apparently she's been saying on Twitter that she's been communicating with law enforcement. I'm still waiting. She did say on one Twitter post, I talked about this in a video the other day, that she was going to talk to Max's handler to find out what Max's scent article was and the exact route that Max took when he was tracking. Max being the dog that was mentioned on the dispatch audio. And I haven't seen anything from Julia to say what Max's handler actually said. So I don't know whether she spoke to Max's handler and he said he couldn't tell her anything or what. I don't know. But I've been waiting for that information to come out. So this is what he's talking about. He's talking about Julia.
So tell her if she wants to pick up communication with me again. I have his shoes and I have his clothes here in the back.
So this is another person that he's fallen out with. Julia is doing a live stream either tonight or tomorrow. So she said, oh, good, thank you. I'll look out for that. Maybe he rented cranes out to a roofing company. Maybe, yeah, maybe. Seth, he said her dogs are mutts. Did he really? Is that what he said? So, Canine Aura is a cadaver dog. And then Canine Gator does live scent tracking. Now, of course, 3 months down the line, there's not going to be any live scent from the house. But Julia's contention is, if he's alive somewhere and and she can find a location where he might be hiding out somewhere, then there would be live scent because he's still alive. So she's got a dog that can track a live person, and she's got a cadaver dog. Now, both of those dogs have other specialties as well. Can't remember which one it is, but one of them also tracks batteries, lithium batteries. So you've got lithium batteries in phones, you've got lithium batteries in various pieces of tech. So that's a useful thing for a dog to understand. That's what I'm training Cassie to do. She's getting really good with phones now. She's getting really good. I can't fool her now. I've given her a lot of easy wins, like finding my phone dead easy places, but I'm now like making it harder for her, and she's getting really good. So anyway, I think it's a useful thing for a dog to learn how to track your phone. This thing is good. Anyway, and the other one also I think does narcotics. I think it's Gator that does narcotics as well. Anyway, so he's got issues with her. He's got issues. How many people has Seth fallen out with? It gets to a point where you think, is it all the people that he's come into contact with that have got the problem, like the many of them, or is it him? Is he the common denominator? Yes, he is. He's the common denominator. All of these people that have done him wrong, all of these people, many of them, like Julia, highly qualified, very genuine dogs. You've got PIs who are licensed, PIs who are certified. You've got a bunch of other people who've had negative interactions with him. Seth's man at the world. Yeah, he is. He is. And no, it's none of it means I think he's a suspect. He's just got problems. He's got issues. Anyway, so Julia's another one he's got problems with.
I've got pillows sitting on his bed. Got his blankets. And my son. But her not reaching out after being in communication. And then her just sitting there saying that she's searching and she's not telling people where to search.
She's not telling people where she's searching for very good reasons, because that's what professionals do. They don't give you all the search locations for obvious reasons. Because if you've said where you've searched, then somebody who has got Sebastian or evidence relating to him can go and plant that evidence in a place where they believe has been searched. You don't give your exact search locations away when you're tracking a person who's potentially the victim of a crime. Now, somebody who's been missing for many years, like at the moment, I'm doing some work on the Trevor Farthing case, which is about 15, 16 miles away from where I live. And Trevor has been missing for almost 7 years. So I'm telling people where I go to, scope out areas and potential places where he might have walked and places where there might be evidence, because there's no hint that Trevor was a victim of a crime. But this is a live, active case where potentially a crime has occurred. It may not be. It may literally be some young man who went out for a walk and got into trouble and sadly is deceased somewhere. Or he's run away and he's living in a homeless camp somewhere. There might be no crime whatsoever, but there might be. So it's absolutely right that Chloe has said she's not giving away her search locations. Julia also is not giving away her search locations. So they're absolutely right. So blaming these people for doing what is absolutely right just shows how blinkered and how little he understands about the actual process that people are going through to try to find his son.
You can come to my house and you can search my house first. Told her that.
She doesn't need to search his house. Sebastian's not at his house. His house has been searched. Like, there's no need to search his house. Now, any articles of clothing that he might have, now there's potential, like 3 months down the line, there's potential for those clothes, like things like a pillow and stuff like that, you know, that scent like dissipates over time. And there's increased potential for things like contamination. So if she wants particular search articles, then it's probably better to get them from law enforcement if law enforcement have kept those scent articles like wrapped appropriately. But Seth is he's just angry. He's just angry at everybody. He's not grateful for all of the help that people have given him. He's not grateful for any of it, it seems. Everybody's done him wrong, it seems. That's what I've got a problem with Seth. That's my problem with Seth. He's angry and he's just not grateful for any help that people have given. And people have given hours and hours and hours, whilst he's relying on people like Tony, who have done nothing but spread rumours and lies, in my opinion. And yeah, Seth is a distraction. The stuff that Seth is talking about is all a distraction. But he's desperate. I know he loves his son. He's desperate to find him, but he's going about it in all the wrong ways, trusting all the wrong people, and throwing away relationships he could have built up with people who have the credentials, who have the experience to actually work with him to find Sebastian. Law enforcement refused to stop talking to him. Law enforcement refused to stop talking to him because he's giving stuff away that they don't want out there. Chris and Katie are not. That's why law enforcement are continuing to work with them. So, right, we're just going to play like one more, maybe 2 more minutes of this. And then we'll call it. Stop judging. Is that directed to me, Honeycomb? Like I said, I have absolutely no doubt whatsoever that Seth is innocent. And I do not believe he's got any connection with Sebastian's disappearance in any direct way whatsoever. He's not a suspect in my eyes, but he's very problematic for a whole bunch of reasons. And the more he talks, the more problematic he becomes.
So to come to my house, search my house, bring your dogs, and I got stuff for you for the smell.
Was there, I think we asked this question, was there a place that Sebastian wanted to go that he may have found a way to get there?
I have no idea.
Do you know of any type of internal cameras ever being at the house of the Proudfoots? Ring doorbell cameras, anything that you've ever seen going there, dropping off, anything that wasn't there the morning that you got there?
Nope, never saw cameras.
Okay, so that's interesting because there's been a rumor that there were cameras inside the house. I mean, I've even said it, probably said it even as recently as yesterday, that there's possibly cameras. There's not a camera outside the house, but there's possibly a camera in the house, which is why law enforcement know that Sebastian left on his own, because it's on a camera. Now, Seth is saying there are no cameras. Now, remember, he was there Monday, Tuesday, and then Wednesday when they fell out. So if there were cameras in the house, would he have noticed? Possibly. So maybe it's absolutely the case that they don't have cameras either on the outside or the inside of their house. So that's an interesting snippet, just to bear in mind. Do they have a camera that Seth wouldn't have noticed? Maybe. But they have said, like Chris and Katie did say, that there was no cameras. I've just been speculating that there could have been, and that's why law enforcement know he left on his own. But maybe that's speculation that we need to put to bed.
What does this say? Can we ask Seth what he saw on the footage of the lights? I think he mentioned at one time that it was a garbage truck. Can he confirm that tonight?
What I was informed of by law enforcement. That's all.
But you didn't see the video?
The video they showed me was of lights and showing me where the floodlights were during the day and where they were at night.
Gotcha.
Right. So we know it was a garbage truck. We know it was a garbage truck. So lights, I don't want to dwell on. We've talked about it at length.
What is the one thing you believe would absolutely bring Sebastian home now?
Can I answer that, Seth?
Sure. Because mine's going to be unethical.
Katie telling the truth.
You see, he has to jump in. He has to jump in with Katie telling the truth. How does he know that Katie is not telling the absolute truth? This is the PR guy who supposedly wanted to unite both sides of the family. He's the problem. He is the problem now in this case. Yeah, list of people who've done Seth wrong. Yeah, Katie, Chris, law enforcement, psychologists, doctors, teachers, judges, the entire state of Georgia, the entire state of California, former YT buddies, and his PIs. Yeah, and Julia the dog handler. It's crazy. Seth, I know you are missing Sebastian. If you ever see this, I know you are missing Sebastian, and my heart goes out to you and to anybody who has got a missing family member, because it's torture. It's horrible. I've been in the situation myself when I was a teenager. My stepbrother went missing for just over 2 weeks. It's horrible. It's horrible. He was found 400 miles away, found alive and well, but alive, not well, because he was in the throes of a psychotic episode. But yeah, I know how it feels. I think that's probably why I gravitate towards a lot of missing person cases on this channel. I know how it feels, and that was just 2 weeks, so I've got a taste for how it feels. And it wasn't my child; it was my stepbrother, so not the same kind of relationship at all. So my heart goes out to everybody, but it doesn't mean to say that I'm going to excuse behaviours that are inappropriate, that are childish, that are not helpful, that are antagonistic, and that are spreading rumours that are not true. And this is the problem I've got now with Seth and his team. So that's where I'm at. That's where I'm at with this case. And no, it doesn't mean to say that I'm Team Proudfoot. I'm not. Chris has also said some problematic things. I'm Team Sebastian. I do not believe any of the parents are directly responsible for his disappearance, but they're not perfect. And I think Seth has got problems that Sebastian would have picked up on. I think Chris and Katie have got problems that Sebastian would have picked up on. And Sebastian was stuck between the rock and a hard place. And I believe that, I'll get it up, actually. I've not got it fired up. I can find it quickly. Chloe, the former PI, who's doing all her own searches, said this on Facebook the other day. Here we go. Okay, so this is May 29th, so a couple of days ago. Sebastian Rogers has been missing for over 90 days. He's 15 years old, loves playgrounds, music, cats, fishing, and talking to his grandmother about plants. He was last seen wearing all black. He's autistic, and it's believed he may have been barefooted when he disappeared, and that he took his glasses and possibly a flashlight. His phone and money were left behind. Through all the details I've received and the investigation myself and others continue, I believe he walked away from home. I do not believe he was assisted in doing so. I do believe he may have been struggling with some emotional turmoil in his life. We are still looking for you, sweet boy. I promise we won't stop. We will continue to focus on you because that's who is the most important. Please keep sharing Sebastian's face. I agree with her. Now, does it mean she's right? Not necessarily, but she's got a license, she's credentialed, she's been doing the work, she's been doing the searches, and I do believe that for whatever reason, Sebastian walked away, and I do believe potentially he did so on his own. Certainly, I believe he left the house on his own. What happened to him after that is anybody's guess. And I think he was struggling. I think he was struggling with the people in his life for all of the reasons that I talked about earlier. There's a lot going on for this young man. So 15 years old, 5'5", just under 120 pounds, brown hair, brown eyes. And last seen, he was actually last seen in the late night hours of February 26th by his mother at his home at Stafford Court, Hendersonville, Sumner County, Tennessee. And he was reported missing just after 6 o'clock. The 911 call came into dispatch at 6:33. Last seen on the late night of February 25th, wearing a black kind of long sleeve t-shirt, not quite a sweatshirt, I don't think, with some kind of motif on it. Black sweatpants with Adidas style stripes, and he had his glasses with him. And he is a vulnerable young man. And you can call with any genuine tips, not stuff that you saw on TikTok, not stuff that you saw in your tea leaves or the spirit box told you, but genuine tips to Sumner County Emergency Communications Centre at 615-451-3838, or, of course, the TBI at 1-800-TBI-FIND. And all the streams that I do in relation to Sebastian, we have the TBI number scrolling across the screen all the way through. I don't stream my Cash App or my Venmo or my PayPal or anything else across the bottom of the screen. I scroll 1-800-TBI-FIND for anybody with a genuine tip. You can also email them at tips2tbi@tn.gov. If you don't want to call them. All right, so I did miss out a bunch of stuff there. There was a few other interesting things that are worthy of discussion. I think it was in this interview, and everything kind of melds into one. And I couldn't find the timestamp when I was putting the timestamps together this morning. I couldn't find it, and I swear down that I heard it. But it said, what am I doing here? Right, that one. That it said that law enforcement had said at a press conference that Sebastian never left the house. That has never been said by law enforcement. So I want Seth, if you hear this, to give me the timestamp for the press conference where law enforcement said that he never left the house. What law enforcement have said consistently is they believe he walked away from the house. Zanane, thank you so much for joining. Welcome to the Secret Agents Club. Welcome, welcome. Never heard Katie say that Sebastian had money. Teenagers generally have a bit of money. You know, they might get money for doing chores or Christmas money, birthday money, that sort of stuff. Seth said it because there were no tracks. Oh, okay. I'm going to have to go and find it and actually listen to it, because I swear down that I heard it, but then I couldn't find it. So maybe I didn't hear it. Maybe I'm just making it up. You know, when you get that feeling of, you know, you've heard it somewhere, you know, you've heard it, and then you just can't find it. But anyway, law enforcement have never said that they believe Sebastian never walked away from the house. They've consistently said that they believe he was last seen at the house, but that he walked away. But everything's on the table. Nobody's been cleared. It is an investigation. There is the potential it's a crime, although there's no signs of foul play towards any of the parents, and no signs of foul play at all. That's what they've continued to say. The last thing we heard from law enforcement was via Nick Barris, who said he got a quote from Sumner County because of all the nonsense that had been coming out. And the last thing we heard from law enforcement was that all the recent rumours are garbage. Did you hear him talk about the day Katie filed for divorce being the same day of the year that Sebastian went missing? Yeah. That came up in this interview, and I think Seth said that he didn't know, that it hadn't occurred to him. Now, I haven't gone back to look at the date on the divorce stuff, but the same date, so the 26th of February. If it's true that she filed for divorce on that day, then it was just a coincidence. But I haven't seen it in black and white where that was the same day. I'm not saying it's a lie. I'm just saying that I haven't checked. I haven't gone to look. I think Katie is medicated. She's on antidepressants for years. Emotions were numb outwardly and still somewhat are. I think she may be on medication, but I think she's just in a world of pain. That's what I see. That's what I see on Katie's face. I see a world of pain. I really do. Seth, he said, him heavily medicated. Yeah, we know Seth's been on medication. Like he said, he's listed off the bunch of medications that he's on for his shoulder. So didn't agree with Sebastian having medications that may have helped him, but then himself is on a bunch of medications for an injured shoulder. So anyway, I'm going to go, guys. Been on here nearly 3 hours yet again. Trying to keep these live streams like fairly short, but then end up being on 3 hours at a time. But anyway, thank you for joining me. You're a nice bunch. Yeah, even if you believe something completely contrary to what I believe, you are welcome here as long as you are respectful. That's all I ask. All I ask. All right, so thank you all. Thanks as always to the mods. Thank you to those that donated. Welcome to the new members, and enjoy the rest of your day. I'm going to see you soon. Bye, guys.